Hello, I'm author Nancy Flinchbaugh, and this is my podcast, Writing for Change. On this podcast, you'll hear from both myself and other writers who write for change. Today, I'm interviewing a teacher, Akomeah Seth Obeng, about the Witness Tree Institute of Ghana. Seth is a music and Christian religious studies teacher for grades 10 through 12 at Battor Senior High School in the Volta Region of Ghana. He is also a musician. He specializes in voice and keyboard. He's a member of various choral groups, as well as he teaches his students music, voice, keyboard, and band. I'm talking to him today about his participation in the second cohort of the Witness Tree Institute of Ghana during July of 2025. Well, welcome, Seth. It's great to see you again today. And I just wanted to start by asking you to tell me a little bit about yourself and how you decided to become a teacher, and what subjects and grades do you teach?
All right, thank you very much, Nancy. My name is Akomeah Seth Obeng, and I'm a teacher in Ghana, precisely in a school called Battor Senior High School. I teach music as a subject and a part of Christian religious studies also. Let me say the grade I teach is grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12. That's in the Ghanaian setting, that would be the SHS 1, 2, and 3. So this is basically about me. I'm a Ghanaian as well, and a Christian background in that. For that matter, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist church worshiper. Basically, aside that, I also teach choral songs. That's a 4-part written songs. That's art music. And I play the keyboard as well. Yeah, so basically that's a little background about me.
Okay, well, thank you. It was great to meet you this summer and to participate with you on the Witness Tree Institute of Ghana's summer cohort trip. And I just wondered what motivated you to apply to be part of that group.
Okay, thank you once again. Witness Tree Institute Ghana, which has been in existence for some time now, is a nice group which was introduced to me by a friend whom we were on the trip with. That's Kwesi Intimeje Daniel. And since he introduced the group to me in last year, I decided to apply by following them on their Facebook platform, and as well going through to know what exactly they do. I realized it entails a lot about teaching and then self-building as well. So I realized how good this group can be. And then once I'm a teacher, I realized I could gather more experience by joining the Witness Tree to participate in their program and then build myself in experience and then send that to my classroom as well. So that was my motivation of applying to join the group.
Okay, so now you've completed the 2-week summer program. I suggested 3, or you can tell more. What were some of the important things that you learned or that you take away from that experience?
Okay. Witness Tree program helped me a lot. I took a lot from it because I can share more than quite a number of things I took from the program. The first thing I would like to talk about is the program actually taught me to be an agent of change. An agent of change. Why do I say that? Looking at the experiences, the lectures we had, the education we were given, and then how we moved about in the program, it taught a lot of lessons about not caring about yourself alone, but once you realize there is a problem around wherever you live, then once you are a teacher, we teach for change. So it has motivated me a lot to always be an agent of change, specifically looking at humanity. That's not considering maybe the status of someone to judge the person, but always trying to figure out what exactly is a problem someone is going through or the problem around you in wherever you find yourself, and then come out with a solution to that, which can change or turn the problems around. That was one thing I took. And one most important thing I can talk about is gracious space. I've heard gracious space before, but I had not really understood what it is. But when I joined Witnessry in our lectures, we were taught a lot, and I picked 4 elements from gracious space, which I took away from the program. And the first thing I can say is that the spirit we bring on board whenever there is an issue or a problem. So always we must carry positive spirit around. And whenever there is something wrong, we shouldn't be quick to judge, but always calm down, see what the problem is, and figure out how best we can bring a positive spirit to turn the problems around to become something positive. And the second element I took from Gracious Space was welcoming a stranger. You know how we live in the world now. One of our lectures told us at first we lived like a family, but currently we live like individual people. That's to say, mostly if we look at the African settings, you'll realize in the olden days, people cook, come together as a family, sit by a table and eat together. And now it's no more like that. Everybody is different. We do our own individual things. But Gracious Space has taught me how to welcome strangers. For instance, we had 2 separate groups from this particular cohort. That was the Ghanaians meeting the American teachers was another issue. Now the problem was, how do you welcome people from American into Ghana since we have not met before? But Gracious Space explains for us to understand there is nothing like color or racism. There is nothing like this is different from me. There is nothing like I am better than any other person. But welcoming a stranger is whether you know the person or not, you must value that person and understand the person can have a positive impact on you. And third thing was public learning, learning publicly, which is kind of a little controversial because a person you don't know or people you don't know you have come to meet to all sit in one class, learn. It's kind of difficult, but It's really built a lot of things like collaboration. Though we don't know each other, but we collaborate and cooperate with each other. Giving listening ears to each other was one of the things about public learning. We could also talk of having individual experiences by having patience and tolerance to listen to whatever someone has to say and then get the understanding of it. And the final thing was settings. American teachers came to Ghana and they would have to study the settings of Ghana to know how to move about. And that creates the impression on Ghanaian teachers also that wherever we find ourselves, we must study the settings of the environment before we try our best to dive into whatever we are about doing. These are things I learned from Witness Tree, and I've taken them as a life guide and working with them currently.
That was a great summary of gracious space. And you certainly
Yes.
provided gracious space for me as a stranger. You were always so nice to me, and I appreciated that, helping
Oh,
me out.
thank you.
Old lady carrying my bag, helped me when everything got wet. And then you helped me with my class when we were teaching. You took all the pictures. So anyway, I really appreciated your friendship and the way you reached out to me as a stranger and took me in. So you provided a lot of gracious space. And yeah, it's a great summary of that. I hope I can do that. It's a goal to be
All
that
right.
way with people. I hope I can. So you said it also is like impacting your teaching. So how would you say what you learned during the witness tree experience is going to impact how you teach?
Okay. Um, Witness Tree Institute has been a group which traveled a lot around the country, took us to different places, and these different places give us different experiences, which some of them could be taken to inculcate in lesson plannings and then learning or teaching in the classroom as well. And I think that is how I'm going to have impact on my experience from witness tree in my teaching. For instance, we visited Koforidua, that's the cocoa farm, and then we learned a lot there, which we realized there is a school there which is asked to only learn about the cocoa product in Ghana. In what I understood over there was in the particular environment, they have realized cocoa is what is available. That's what they see around them. So they must concentrate on that and then teach around it so that in the near future, the youth can also have something good from that. I think it has motivated me as a teacher that as I'm back to the classroom, I should understand it is my duty to prepare my lessons, and I will have to sit down and then plan everything I'm going to teach in the classroom. I must understand the environment in which I am, and then the children around this environment, what materials we have, and use them in preparing my lessons so that lesson teaching will not be seen something abstract or far away from pupils or students, but it will be something simple which is very close to them and they can easily understand it by having a feel of what they are learning since it's around them. One other thing is the experience we gathered at Cape Coast. When we visited the Cape Coast Castle, learning about the slave trade, taught us a lot, and myself in particular, I learned a lot from that. What I realized was humanity was not catered for, and the individual views were not sorted, so people were treated however they were not supposed to be treated. But in this case, I've learned to understand that wherever I find myself, especially in the classroom as a teacher, the children we teach are different and individually coming from different backgrounds. Therefore, I have to have ears for them, listen to them, know their needs, and calm down to their levels to teach them to the grassroots for them to understand what exactly I am giving them, which should have positive impact on their lives in the near future. So this is how I can bring the experience I had from witnessry into my teaching.
Okay, that's great. We also had like several American teachers on the trip, and I just wondered what was that like for you to interact with the American teachers, and you talked a little bit about creating gracious space for them, but what was your experience with that?
Okay. It wasn't very easy working with American teachers. I said that because it was a little difficult from the beginning to easily get the accent of how they speak.
It was hard to
Sometimes,
understand us.
yes, sometimes
I
they will
think we
speak
had that
and
trouble too, a little bit, to the American
yes,
ear, you kind of have a little more of a British accent, so we have to listen carefully. But
exactly,
I don't know what the
exactly.
Americans sound like to you, but we must sound strange, huh?
Yes. Sometimes they speak and then the accents they sound like you will have to take time to process what they are saying before you get the understanding. So that was a little challenge, but I think after 2, 3 days of our meetings, it became very normal with us, and we understood each other very much, and we took it from there. But aside that, it was so nice and beautiful working with the American teachers. They are very amazing. I learned something specific from them, which I think I will never stop doing that. That is what we call time management. Time management. Um, they were very concerned and particular about going with their time. And I think it's something good collaborating with them. I also took from the American teachers. Whenever we are supposed to be at a place at a particular time, they will not miss it. They will be there on time.
Well,
They will
we got
always,
in trouble the first day for not being on time, so then we
yes. I
tried
think
to be afterwards on time.
the first day we realized and learned that was a miscommunication, which brought that trouble. But aside that, we didn't find that trouble again.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And secondly, um, it was so fun working with the American teachers because I never saw any of them going angry. They also tried their best to practice the gracious space. So it was so fun. And whenever we had group discussions and we were missed, it was so fun and so nice. Because we come from different backgrounds and have different mindsets. But we still come together to have discussions and arrive at one conclusion, which was something good. And I think if I get more opportunities, I'll be happy to work with them. They are so amazing.
Okay, thank you. And then in one of the lectures we had was about education in Ghana, and they told us a couple things. One is that they're really trying to teach the whole person and not focus just on maybe what I would call the intellect. We have a lot of that in the United States, teaching to the test, and they're trying to make sure the students know the English language, the math, the history, the sciences, and so they have testing them all this. But there's so many other things that we as humans have to learn to be human. And they said that you're trying to focus on that in the schools, as well as incorporating some of the traditional languages, music, dances, so that, and wisdom. That's one thing I really appreciated about the Ghanaian culture, is they have so much wisdom that you pass along from one generation to another, like the Adrinka symbols and a lot of different sayings. And I know we were encouraged when we were doing those I am poems to think about what wisdom was passed on to us from our family. And several of I talked to some of the other people, we didn't feel like we got a lot of that. But I think, in your culture, that's very common. So anyway, I was just wondering, as you look at it as a teacher and in your school, are are you trying to do those things, or those kind of new approaches to incorporate the past, the traditional culture, as well as the whole child, the whole student?
Okay, thank you, Nancy. This is a nice question, and I love the question. Why? Because in Ghana we say we teach the whole person, but we don't teach one part of the person. That is others will be focusing on teaching only the brain. That's only teaching the child how to speak English, how to read and write, and that is all. But in the African setting, or specifically in Ghana, that is not the main concentration of education. But when we say we teach the whole person as an individual, we are mostly talking about giving education to the child in such a way that the child will complete his or her cycle of education, and school that the child has attended will not only pass through the child, but the child will also pass through the school. This is as simple as we know teaching and learning has to have a positive impact on children. And we know when we teach the children, we must teach both the cognitive, the affective, and then the psychomotor as well. There is a notion which I always say that is very wrong. That if you want to hide something from an African child, hide it in the book, because the book, the African child will not go and take it to read. I see that not to be very true, because in Africa or in Ghana here, we do not only concentrate on reading and writing, but mostly our culture, our identity is what we also learn from. So that is inculcated in our learning, in our teaching and learning process. So we know, as we are not hiding things from the African child or the Ghanaian child in book, our education is also seen in our music. It is also seen in our drumming. They are seen in our storytellings, in our folk tales, in our drawings, in our paintings. All these forms are forms of communication or other forms of education to the Ghanaians. So when we are teaching the cultural background or our identity, our education is found in there. So when you are teaching the whole person, it means aside the child being able to read and write English language or the local language, that particular child must also be able to acquire the very normal values and attitudes you must live in the outside world. So we see those things in our music, in our drummings, in our dances, in the storytelling, folk tales. And that is why we do that in our schools to also train the child how to live well when the child comes out from the school. And I can say in my school, this is done. It is well done in my school because aside the normal teaching and learning, we have co-curricular activities which has to do with groups with singing. We have groups which we concentrate on dances. We have the drama groups, the debate groups, the storytelling and others. So in my school, that's Battor Senior High School, this is greatly seen, and then we teach the whole child, not only the reading and writing aspect.
Yeah, that's a great description and a wonderful approach that you have. I think the American schools could learn from what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just one more question. I have my podcast called Writing for Change because I like to say I write for peace, justice, and the earth. But now in this series, I'm kind of doing teaching for change because I think that's part of what Witness Tree is about. So, and you mentioned this earlier that you're kind of teaching for change. Obviously, any form of teaching, I think you're hoping to create positive changes in your students. And you mentioned earlier that you want to equip them to do effective problem solving. But do you want to say anything more about that or how you think about the teaching for change as you work at your school?
Okay, thank you once again. I think your aspect of writing for change, I am doing teaching for change. Um, I see the writing for change as kind of a little difficult because if you don't get a lot of people to patronize your write-ups, it means all what you're writing will be hidden. But I see it as once a teacher, I have the opportunity to meet a lot of people at different times. And that serves as a great avenue to preach what I learn. That is to teach things that bring about positive changes. Of late, how humanity is understood by a lot of people is different from how I understand humanity to be. So I've realized mostly a lot of places I find myself, most people who are kind of highly educated or they have got the opportunity to learn something from schools, um, they normally treat people with partiality. But I see the world to be an impartial world. All our decisions must not favor other people than others, but we should all be seen equally. Not in terms of age, though, but in terms of treatment. We all deserve better. Everybody deserves to be treated good. So, seeing that, I think from our young ones, if we impart this sense into our learning and then teach them about positive changes, about the things happening in the world, I think it will be so good. And from there, as time move on, generation coming up may see the changes. Even if we don't see it today, they may see it one day. So I also believe in teaching for change and then being problem solvers as well.
Well, thank you. That was a great answer. And sometimes we refer to the concept as be the change that you want to see. And I see that you're living it out as an example and also as a mentor to your students to help them become
Yes.
positive change makers in our world. And I agree with you. Somebody told me once, if you want to hide something, hide it in a poem. You say hide it in a book. And I think it's true in America as much as in Africa. Things in books sometimes remain hidden. But if you live your life working for change and teaching for change, you have more of an impact and more possibility to make a difference. I agree with that. So those are
Yeah.
great answers. Okay, so anything else you wanted to add?
Sorry, come again?
Is there anything else that you would like to say before we close our interview?
Okay. I think maybe the last thing I'm interested in to add in this interview is one thing I learned from the trip, which was a lecture by Professor Kofi Opoku Asare. He has a concept that he teaches about the spirituality of human beings and then the nature of God in us. And in that case, he connect that with our identity, that is not living in on a borrowed culture of others, but living within what you have. So what we have here is what we live within. In other words, he sees the nature of God to be built in us as our soul names or day names we call in Ghana, which is the God in you is seen as the day you were born. So for us not to lose our identity, our names are very important, especially the day names we have in Ghana here. Like a Sunday born, we call you Kwesi, or if a female, we call you Akosia. Like a Monday born, if you are a man, we call you Kwejo, or a woman or a female, we call you Ajua.
That's what I
Tuesday will be called Kwabena and Abena, whilst Wednesday will be Kweku and Ekuya. Thursday will be Yao and Ya. And Friday, which is my day as well, is Kofi and Efia. And Saturday being Kwame and Ama. He sees these names to be names that were given us by God since we were born, because we were born on particular days. So once you bear that name, it means you have a God in you. And we see it as everybody, no matter where you are located in the world, was surely born in a particular day. So all of us have God in us. And so if God in us and we are all like God, it means we must always treat each other like we are treating God. So we treat each other equally so that we live well in peace and harmony in the world. I think this is what I want to add to it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your stories about witnessry and teaching. I'm sure it will help a lot of other people to listen to your wisdom and the God in you as you've shared yourself this morning. So thank you so much. And it's great to see you again.
Thank you so much to Nancy. Thank you for the opportunity.
If you would like to contact Seth, you can reach him at his email at Akomeah Seth Obeng at mail.com. You can find out more about the Witness Tree Institute of Ghana on their website at witnesstreeinstitute.org. If you are a teacher and want to apply to Journey to Ghana, you'll also find the application for their 2026 program there soon. Just keep checking back. You can see pictures of the cohorts visiting Ghana on their Facebook page at Witness Tree Institute. In addition, you can find some YouTube videos on Tete Kopla, the director's YouTube channel, where he has two playlists, the Witness Tree Institute of Africa, or just Witness Tree Institute Africa, and Witness Tree Institute Contemporary Ghana. Thank you for coming and listening. You can find out more about my Writing for Change on my website at nancyflinchbaugh.com or check out my YouTube channel at Nancy Flinchbaugh. I'm also on Facebook at Nancy Flinchbaugh Author. The Writing for Change podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Just search for Writing for Change, Nancy Flinchbaugh. Have a great day.